Okie dokie. Right. Okay, sweet. Just making sure everything's good. Opening to my channel. Cool. Anyways. Alright. I'm going to start animating. This is Blender right now that I'm using. I'm actually giving Blender another chance. So for those who don't know, I'm going to sort of start work on this little experiment that I've been doing, which is kind of like redoing the opening to my channel. So I'm going to bring it to the new age, to the year 2022. Hopefully I finish this. But yeah, I'm going to be using grease pencil. I'm going to give it another chance, another shot, see what it's like. And, you know, for those who have used grease pencil, maybe you guys can tell me, you know, what I could be doing instead, or, you know, some tips here and there. But I'm going to try and reanimate the opening, to my, yeah, the opening, using free software, hopefully. So, you know, we'll see how that is. We'll see how that goes. Anyways, let's get started. Oh crap. Just making sure everything's good. Okay, so I'm just gonna animate. Yeah, so I've already like sort of cleaned up some keys here, and I've also set my keyboard shortcuts already to the keys, so it's going to make animating, you know, much more fun for me. So right now I'm kind of just doing like a tie down cleanup for our stuff. So yeah, I'm going to start animating, and I'm also going to answer a few questions here and there. So Tiger Pump asks, how do we show you our art and animation? You know what? I'll set a stream for that where I review portfolios and animation reels. I haven't really figured out when and when's a good time for that, but I do want to do portfolio reviews and reel reviews. Okay, this looks like a key. Actually, this might be a good key too, to sort of clean up. Okay. So I don't know if there's any plugins for the shift and trace in shoot, why isn't it changing size? Oh well. And grease pencil, maybe there is, but I just haven't figured it out yet. But yeah, I'm gonna try and animate this using grease pencil. Okay. My day's been going good. I'm just really tired because I did a lot of stuff today. But overall, yeah. Oh, F changes sizes? Oh, cool. That's good to know. Thanks for the heads up on that. Shoot, I haven't set the keyboard shortcuts for, yeah, for the undo. Actually, let me bring that back up. Is that the size? No, it's what radius was it? Let me just bring this up back to, was it? Oh, I'll just use 12, whatever. Okay. And then I'm just going to erase this. Yeah, Blender isn't my first choice of animation programs. So, you know, what this is sort of a challenge. You know, me saying that like Blender isn't my first choice, it doesn't mean that I'm not going to use it. And it's kind of like, even though I say things like, oh, you know, it's not my ideal program, it's, you know, this is me trying to understand it a bit more, because I know a lot of people use grease pencil and I don't really know much about it. But yeah, I would prefer using TV Paint still over this. Hold on, let me just set my macros to do something for me. C1. Where is that? Just hold on for a second here. I'm just going to make sure some buttons are working properly. Okay, so this will be Control C. Okay. And then what's redo? Shift Control Z. Okay. So at least I have those. Okay, cool. So now it'll work. Yeah, I'm basically making a new intro for my channel, but I'm also going to make the whole set in 3D eventually. And I'm not being too precious about the cleanup. Because I know that it's gonna play by really, really fast. Okay. I mean, I think for me, I'm just using the eraser on my stylus. And I'm not using pen pressure. I don't really like grease pencils. How their pen pressure works on the size. I'm not a big fan of it yet. Also, I don't really like drawing in it yet, but I think that's also a matter of time. Maybe I'll get used to it. This is me trying to learn a new program. Okay, I'm gonna see some questions. What time zone do I'm in California time, Los Angeles time. So this is actually the third version of the opening. I did one back. The first one I did was like back when I started my channel in 2015. And then I think I made the new one around either 2017 or 2018. Okay, I think his head shrank a bit, so I'm gonna. I feel like he is losing a bit of form with. Well, form for me doesn't really matter in this opening. But how this animation looks like if I play it. He's going to wave, and he's going to do a jump spin on a chair, and then bounce. So this is kind of what the new version is going to feel like. Okay. So no, this isn't pre-recorded. We're live right now. And thanks for those who are doing the Gumroad course that I made. Thank you guys so much for the support. It really means a lot that people do find what I have to say useful, and I do want to use those earnings to fund foundations and projects in the future related to animation. Like, I've been sort of like working with other talents on a project that I've been leading because I just can't do everything by myself anymore. It's too much work. And I think if I want to do more things by myself and finish more things, I think it's best to just like make really casual and quick things. Okay, so some questions. Are there things you feel grease pencils lacking compared to what you're used to? I mean, I'm pretty sure there's stuff for it on grease pencil, like the shift and trace. I'm pretty sure there's like a plugin for that I have to find and download. But I think that like coloring I still have a lack of control over it. I'm not sure how the gap closers work, and it's really the drawing tools that get to me. And I think the problem with grease pencil, and I'm using it, and I'm saying like the problem with grease pencil, or the problem with like recommending grease pencil to beginners of animation is that like Blender itself is quite a thick program with a lot of functionalities. So if you just want to learn 2D animation, I'd recommend something else. But I do think there is a potential with grease pencil, and I'm not saying it's impossible to like not switch over to grease pencil, but I think like there's other 2D animation programs that make the workflow better, like having an X sheet or having a library. The library, yeah, that's super useful. Some 2D animation friendly stuff, which a lot of programs like TV Paint, Harmony, and even OpenTunes have. Okay, let me see. Hey, Teach, do you know about the audio function in Grease Pencil? I have it in my scene, and it's pretty good. I haven't tried audio syncing yet, but that's something that I will eventually look into. Thanks for the heads up. Okay, so Mewtwo asks, I like to animate, but I often get cold feet when it comes to getting a scene started. Any tips on simplifying one's art for rough animation? Just draw fast and draw loose. That's all I really have to say. I think like to be more confident with your work, you kind of just have to like, be super loose. At the same time, like really a lot of like drawing mileage. So go out and draw, live draw, get comfortable with it and get a sense of it. But I think you have to start somewhere when it comes to animation. Just start it. Okay, let me see some other questions. Hey, hey Tanika, would you recommend grease pencil? There's no good free animation. Yeah, as I said, like if it's your only option, then I'd say, hey, it doesn't hurt to learn it. I think if you feel really strongly about like learning how to animate in grease pencil, by all means, go for it. For me, I'm more comfortable with simpler programs, and the programs that are made for 2D animation, they have user-friendly functions that Grease Pencil doesn't have. Like there's functions where I can easily automate all of this with a click of a button, or I can like mask things easily, or I can set each of these keys as like 2s, 3s, and 4s, and it's a button. I think there is a function like that in Grease Pencil, but again, I haven't really found it myself. Okay, are you ever going? So someone asked, are you ever going to make a video on what you do on the iPad and what programs you use? Yeah, I've already recorded like me testing out different programs like Flip-A-Clip, Procreate, Adobe Fresco, Rough Animator for a lot of the 2D animation stuff. I just don't know what angle I want to take it when it comes to making a video for that, and I'm not sure. Like, I really don't like doing software videos because it's really all of a matter of preference. So for me, like so far, I think I would not use Flip-A-Clip because I think it's just too basic for me. There's no like timeline that makes sense, and it's for fun, but I wouldn't use it for work. That's what I'm trying to say. Okay, I think this stuff will be straight ahead, but I think I'll have a pose up here because that is its highest point, I think. Yeah, okay. I'm gonna draw that. And then I'm gonna pan. Ooh boy. Okay, so his head is bigger than what I roughed out, but I'm gonna try my best to like sort of eyeball that. Again, I don't know what the shift and trace is. Okay, hello. Does animating get easy? Wait, so someone... Hold on, I missed a few questions. Is being good at animation just 80% being really good at rotating forms? No, I think people get fixated on the drawing aspect of animation. Like, the draftsmanship of animation, but I think some people forget that like animation is also like timing and performance and all this other crap that you have to deal with. But I think like a lot of people tend to get lost in the technical drawing aspect, and I do believe that technical drawing skills are pretty important for animation. But I think that like you also have to juggle like performance and timing and like animation and all that. I think like having good technical drawing skills that's like survival skills for just like drawing in general or animation, but I think like animation definitely has its own certain rules when it comes to drawing. Okay. No, does animating get easier the more second nature as it gets along, especially when making down keyframes? I think so. I think the thing that really makes it why animation gets easier for me over time is because I used to thumbnail all the time, and I still do actually. And thumbnailing is a practice of just like having a sheet of paper and just like planning out your poses before you actually start animating it. And what that forces you to do is to actually think about what you're going to draw without just doing the whole like, oh, I'm gonna trial and error it. When you're actively thinking about your choices and thumbnailing it and seeing like what works and what doesn't through just doing that, like really thinking about it. Because think about like you having to animate on paper, and you can only use the pencil test shooter for like once a day or twice a day. It's like you really can't waste time just like making small changes to your animation on paper, going to the pencil shooter and then shooting that. And I don't think these pants are working. I'll figure it out soon, but I'm just gonna put a rough drawing there. Okay, and he's supposed to be smiling. Boop, boop, boop. Okay. So someone asked, could I explain my layers? So let me show what I have. So the rough animation looks like this. So I did a rough. I haven't filled out the fills. So it's just like, line, rough, and animation. That's basically it. Oh, I think his head grows. I'm gonna actually adjust that. So lock this, unlock line. There. I think that feels a bit more appropriate. All right. Okay, so how about paper and pencil? You ever want to? Okay, sorry. Let's look at the other questions. Have you tried Clip Studio Paint? It's very good. Wait, sorry. So many other questions I forgot to answer. Have you ever? Yeah. Have I tried Clips? I haven't tried animating in Clip Studio, but I do enjoy drawing in Clip Studio. I actually have it, but I just haven't really tried out the animation functionality because, learning a program for animation, like, I think I'm okay with just what I have. I don't think like just learning a program just for the sake of learning it. I think that takes so much time for me to like learn a different program unless I'm actually using it for work. With Grease Pencil, there might be a chance where I might actually have to use it for work. So this is kind of like how I teach myself and how to use it. Okay, so I have my key, so I'll play that very briefly, and I'll answer that question. I'll answer some questions while this is playing. Okay, are there any animation programs that you recommend for people trying to transition away from Flip a Clip? And for iPad, I really recommend Rough Animator. It's simple, it's easy, it's got a timeline, and you can export it into like PNG sequences, image sequences, or even movie files. And then you can import that into your desktop animation of choice. There's Calipeg, which is also like, really advanced, and, it was made for like 2D animators. But I will also say that the problem I have with Calipeg is that it does require you to know finger gun language, meaning there's a lot of like functions. It's feature rich, and there's a lot of like finger shortcuts that I can't even memorize, and I'd rather use a program that's simpler for an iPad especially. I think that's a problem I had with like Procreate too. Okay, I'm gonna do some breakdowns. Okay, so I think this key is important, where he like looks straight into your soul. Okay, um, yes, I do want to revisit paper and pencil, and I've actually been drawing a lot more on paper, to be honest. Like I've been nowadays, I just do like character design work or just like fun drawings on a sketchbook, and then I just like scan them in or bring them into Photoshop, and then just clean it up for there. And the great thing about paper is that for me, I'm less precious about it, if that makes sense. Like um, with digital, I kind of overthink about like the file and the layout and everything. But then with paper and pencil, it's like, well, I know that I have limited resources. Hold on, I think it's cuter when his mouth is not there. Okay. Um, what's my process on rough animated? That should be a video of its own. I can't really explain it as I animate on this right now. Okay, so the workshop that I was planning to have tomorrow, there's been a misunderstanding with the schedule and what was expected, so it's been canceled. And that's kind of why I deleted that tweet. So I'm going to talk with Dot Madrid in Spain to sort of like figure out what's happening with that and if they're still interested in working with me. And I would say it's mostly my fault because I didn't really update them with what my workshop was going to be about. And I tend to do things last minute. So that's a lesson that I have to learn to not do that. But I think it's better that way so that like now everyone knows that there is something rather than people knowing last minute. Hold on, just drawing this. But yeah, I'm not using the light table at this stage. I'm gonna save it for like in betweens. Okay. CSP is an animation nightmare. I need to use that. Yeah, I think like just grab whatever is accessible to you. I think that would be a much wiser choice. Okay. And then I'm going to make him look into the camera, just like a blink. Bloop. As a beginner, I would say you could not full animation projects. I would say like really short ones, like stuff like a full one for a beginner. I would say make something that's like 10 seconds long at max, and then see what that feels like. I think people get too carried away with like how big their project should be, especially if it's their first. They want to make it good. They want to make it epic. So at Cal Arts, we had this thing called the second year epic. And the second year epic is this thing where after the first year of making a film at Cal Arts, there's a lot of students that go, oh, I know how to make a student film now. I know how to make a film. I'm going to make something really epic for my second year film. And then they realize that it's actually harder than what they thought. And then eventually they don't finish their film. And that's kind of why we call it the second year epic, because it usually happens in a student's second year. Like they want to like really utilize what they've learned. Okay, let me see. How rough are you? How would you transition from comic artist to story artist? I think it's mostly about like that's a good question. Imagine your comic panels are film panels for a movie or a screen, and then you're also going to have to know how to key pose things. As much as like I hate saying that, as much as I don't like the idea of like storyboarding being close to animation with like keyframing and posing and all that, it is important, especially for like performance and all that. So I think that's kind of why like I recommend everyone to try learning how to do sequential drawing with characters. Yeah, I'm not even in betweening this properly, but whatever. It's gonna move pretty fast. And then I can turn on the onion skin if I want to. Hold on. Why isn't the onion skinning showing the next one? Where do I find that? Onion skin. Where are you? I think it's here. Yeah, one frame after. There we go. Yeah, so many buttons. Jesus, and grease pencil. Just to turn on a few options. Okay. Hey, I don't know if you have done such a video, but I'd like to talk about pacing and animation quality. Like, there are still shots and minimal shots, and yeah, I think I'll talk about limited animation sometime, for sure. That's a topic that I've always wanted to explore. Okay. How did you know that I wanted to make this channel? I've always wanted, I like sharing stuff that I've learned over my career and, breaking it down so it feels simpler. And then I've also wanted to make original animation and cartoons. But, that's on top of like a full-time job. That's like super hard. And I think it's easier for me to like share experiences and like talk about like tips and things that I've learned, in my work that has worked for me in the industry. So I think that's kind of why I've wanted to start one. I did think about like wanting to be a YouTuber like when I was younger, but at the same time, I just don't find the joy in like having a YouTube personality. It doesn't ring true to me what I'm trying to say. Like, I don't feel the need to build like a crazy YouTube following. For me, the way I treat YouTube now is like it's like a little journal that I put up, a journal where I can like talk about how something like helped me in my career, or like stuff that I'm very strongly opinionated about. I just don't really have the YouTube personality or the persona, and I personally don't want to do that because again it seems really boring to me to play a character or to be like this influencer. That is something that I don't really relate to. Okay. Hey, I don't know if you have done a talk of such a video, but I'd like. Well, wait, you have. Hi, Nico. Would you start learning animation if you're a beginner? You have to start somewhere for sure. Beginner in animation? I mean, sure, why not start? I don't know who Matt Forsyth is. Do you have any tips for coming up with ideas for personal projects or short films? I get this asked all the time, and I think it really is just about what is a question you have for yourself. Like, what do you want to see, or what do you want to try and do for a short film? It's like, well, you have an image in your mind. Okay, cool. Is there a story behind it? Is there a moment behind it? You don't have to come up with like an epic story or a fully fleshed out story for a short film. Sometimes it could just be a moment, like a montage of like people dressing up, or a montage of people just like doing their day-to-day life. It doesn't have to have a rich story to have to be qualified as as film. So I would say, like, if you have a question or something you want to experiment with, that's already an idea there. It's really just about how you approach it and how you get the idea. You can think about life experiences. You can think about like a cool image that you want to see animated. It really just is about what question do you have that has a craving to be answered. That's pretty much it. I think it's just like, don't really just keep asking questions about any ideas and how to come up with an idea, because you can think about that yourself. Okay. By the way, I do know about sculpt mode. I don't really enjoy it yet for this. I tried doing it with like in-betweens, but I haven't really mastered it to make it look natural. But every time I do, I can't yet make it natural unless maybe I'm doing limited animation. Then maybe that could work. Okay. I've never heard of sequential drawing. Do you mean making a character move in a single drawing? It's more like, maybe the way I would describe it is like, how can you tell a story like from point A to point B to point C in a sequence of drawings? Like, comics is basically sequential art. It's like you see drawings in an order. You could even have like multiple drawings of a single character like doing a motion of a pose. Like each drawing is like a different part of that motion. So you can do that. You can actually do that. Okay. I'm. Any suggestions for beginners on which type of human anatomy is easiest to animate with? Let me see if I can. So I'm just gonna do a little drawing on the side. So, I mean I did a video on like shorthands, but I would usually just animate something that looks, maybe like this. Just something simple so it's easy to keep track of everything, and then once maybe you have this animated, then you can like revisit and like tie it down with like actual solid form and tapering and all that. Something simple, like a box body. Some people use a marionette. I would say like maybe that's something that you have to come up with, but I did a video on talking about like figure shorthands for animation, how other animators use different shorthands, and I tried it myself, and what I learned from each of those shorthands. So I would say like do life drawing, do figure drawing, gesture drawing outside. Try drawing a figure really fast and loose, and then try and think about basic shapes. So nothing like I wouldn't worry too much about like trying to nail like this shape or like triangles or hourglass or anything like that. I would say like just start with like a square, square for ribs, square for pelvis, and then like maybe a few lines for the limbs, and then maybe you can work your way into sort of like now fleshing them out into something that feels feels like human anatomy. But again, I would also study anatomy and gesture drawing. You could also do it the figure drawing approach, which is just like, here's the shoulders, here's the gesture for the shoulders, hips, right? And then you have your rib cage, and then you have your hips, and then you have the legs, right? You can even like turn it into like a little skeleton and then try animating this. That could be something that you guys can try and do when you're animating, your figures, and then put cylinders and all that on top afterwards. But yeah. Maybe I'll do like a separate video or a live video where I talk about like ways you could animate the human figure. Hold on, I'm gonna see other questions. I wanted to work in a big studio. No, you don't have to go to college to work in animation. However, I will say that if your situation is of that of an international person, and if you want to move here and work here, you have to realize that you do need, in most work visas, like an H-1B in America, you do need a visa to qualify for a standard work visa. But there's also another one called the O1, which is you don't need a visa, but you also need career experience. So testimonial letters and articles written about you that has been publicized. So it kind of shows that you are someone that is important in the industry, or someone that is pretty prolific. I'm going to save this quickly. Okay. Kipa owns you all. Sorry, just scrolling up. I know there are animation storyboarding principles. There's not really like an official list of like principles for storyboarding, because a lot of it is film language, like staging, the 180-degree rule, and like understanding low angle, high angle shots. So I would say like look into like film terminology more so than like things that are just related to storyboarding, you know? Okay, hello Taniko. Do you think it's worth it to focus on Blender's Grease Pencil instead of Adobe Animate for YouTube videos, around 5-minute ones? Do you feel like Blender limits you? It's not that Blender limits me. It's just that like I'm a lot more prolific and faster in a program like Flash. And I think like Flash, I mean the great thing about Flash is that its library system is super easy to understand. Whereas in Blender, I think I'll need to give myself time to learn a program. And I think that's the biggest factor here. It's the time that's required to for me to learn a program. And that's why I don't really enjoy like doing videos where I talk about, oh, what I feel about this animation program, because everyone's experience is different. Some people like Adobe Animate, some people hate it, some people like TV Paint, some people hate it. Everyone's experience is different, so I don't really feel comfortable in asking or answering questions about like, should I animate using this program, which a lot of people ask me. It's like, should I do this program? I'm like, dude, just try it, see if you like it. If you like it, good. If you don't, then try something else. I've also gotten like messages from people saying, oh, I don't use grease pencil properly and that's why I don't like it. Well, that's also maybe that there is kernels of truth to that, but at the same time, it is a preference that I choose certain programs because I have very sort of like specific needs in what I'm looking for in a program. Okay, anyways, are you from Asia? Do you want to make your own original animation series? I've always wanted to make like my own show or things like that. I was more amped up about it in the past, but I think after I hit a certain age, I just don't really, that really isn't a crazy priority anymore, like pitching anymore, or like being a part of the rat race. And, I think like more importantly, I would rather want to like make super small casual things and then see where that goes rather than like trying to make a whole series to myself and trying to start that without like a game plan. I mean, there's a lot of like places, a lot of people are from the industry are trying to start their own animated series, but I think like the independent landscape, it does require you to like not rely on the things that do work in like a industry. Okay. How do you feel about not safe for work artwork? I know I've seen some weird art online, and actually I have been talking with a lot of like not safe for work artists and animators, and I have been talking about like what that's like and if they have any advice for that. It's a thing that I've also been doing a lot of, sort of research on in how to approach it. Like, what is the angle that I personally want to take with that? Like, I have a lot of opinions about it, but I also don't want to, like, say anything that, like, misleads people. So that's kind of why, like, I'm kind of, like, trying to figure out what kind of angle do I want to take it at. In terms of, like, not safe for work art, I think, like, a lot of people they say a lot of people just get into it because there is good money, and that is true. But one thing you have to realize is that, once you kind of get into it, you get into it. So, there's also, I've heard people like say that for them, it's like, I don't know if it's true that it's caused like hardships in people's careers. I don't really know anyone that has gone through that, so I can't really say that. Okay, do you think you can replicate the 60s? Oh, absolutely. I think the 60s Hanna-Barbera style is quite easy to replicate, especially if you have character designs that fit that Barbera style pretty well. Okay, shoot, we have 10 minutes left in the episode, and we are at animation budget. What do we do? Okay. Any suggestions? I've already answered the suggestions for beginners to animate human anatomy. Hey, Taniko, do you think 3D animation skills transfer to 2D animation? Yeah, I think everything that you learn about animation or whatever, it'll transfer. Like, even, like, doing a single sport, physical sport or martial art does help you with understanding how human mechanics and anatomy work. So I think everything, you kind of, like, have to, like, find ways to make it work. It's not like, oh, it's not going to work. It can. You just have to, like, try it out for yourself. It's not like you doing the wrong thing or the right thing for learning something. It's like, what can you take out of whatever you're practicing? Okay, so how have you gotten to talk with Corey Walker much on Invincible? I personally haven't. I work closely with um, the story team and the animation team, but not, I'm not really a part of those meetings because I'm not really someone in that show that is like a supervising role or director. And honestly, that's fine. Like, I like working just as a story artist, and I actually like working under a director. It's kind of like freeing in a way. Hold on. These eyes don't make sense. Okay, there we go. Um, so it's David Lynn. I might be coming from a conservative background, but someone who wants to try art, NSFW art baffles and confuses, and then, still I want to try it out somehow. So here's the thing. So in response to that, I will say that, if you call yourself an artist, it's like, well, there's a lot of facets of things that artists want to explore. Like, I have worked on a show like Veggie Tales, but I've also worked on like some bloody and gruesome and sexual shows. One of the um, adult animated shows that I worked on, my first sequence was like, working on an orgy scene. And honestly, that's kind of like, refreshing. And, as artists, it's like we want to explore different parts of ourselves and different stories we want to explore. So, a part of you wants to be kid friendly, but a part of you also wants to be like horrific and violent. And, you kind of need to explore what that is like for you if you want to like find that creative fulfillment. I don't think that like you should mark yourself as like, oh, I only do this type of stuff, or this type of content. You could do that, but at the same time, like, I think, as artists, and I don't call myself an artist, but I do call myself as someone who likes to explore different parts of myself. I think in ways it is healthy if that is sort of like a thing that you want to explore, as long as it's not hurting anyone or, getting into weird territories. Okay. Question: do you have a startup routine before you start animating, or just start? Not really. I mean, sometimes like before I even work, sometimes I'll go to the cafe and like sketchbook, draw out there. And I've been getting more into like sketchbook drawing because it has been actually really good for my mental health. Like, for me, I don't care about like making a cool looking sketchbook, but the sketchbook actually helps me stay grounded to reality because sometimes like I have issues staying present in like circumstances, like I overthink. So like having a sketchbook and just drawing things around me is a great way for me to sort of like be present with whatever I'm around and be more observant rather than just like be in a cafe and then just overthink, oh my god, I need to do this for work and things like that. But having a sketchbook actually takes me away from that and the usage of like social media. Okay, international F1. That means you're a student if you have an international F1 visa. Okay, speaking of working, is there a huge difference between working at home and animating at home? Wait. Oh, yeah. I think it's just like the vicinity, but I think like regardless, people have been pretty productive working from home. It has been pretty good for everyone, in my opinion. I think some people prefer working in the office. I think it's a matter of preference. For me, at first I thought I would hate it, but now I actually like working from home because it allows me to like do other errands that are super important in my life. Whereas working in an office, it's like, well, it's hard to sort of like make time to address those. But at home, it's like, you're close. You're close to your home base. So as an in so someone asks, as an European undergraduate, you'd have to work in the industry before moving to LA. No, not really. Unless, I mean, if you want to do an O1 visa, then it helps. But if you're just doing an H1B work visa, you do have to have a degree. But some internationals get hired from school, straight from school. but I would say like it helps if you already have industry experience, even if it is just like remote. And a lot of studios are open to like working with people remote. Okay. How would you advise beginner and immediate artists when they are met with various criticism, whether it's from a religious or political background or whatsoever? I personally don't do a lot of like religious or political stuff, so that's something that I don't really have comments on, um, and how to deal with it. But I have made work that has alienated my audience. So, I think it's just like, well, what's more important to you? Like, making the art that you're passionate about, or how you might end up like alienating an audience. And it really depends on how you handle that. So, let's say you get criticized for having a certain view and how that work reflects that view. You could be respectful and say, "Hey, this is just like an art piece that I was exploring." You don't even have to like fight back or be combative with other people online, which some industry professionals have when they've made art that not many people agreed with, and it's caused them like a lot of like drama and shit like that. Okay. Um, okay, so chocolate egg. Did you so some this chocolate egg asks, did you land a position at DreamWorks right after CalArts, and do you remember what the visa situation was like at the time? Yeah, after CalArts, that's this. Sorry, this hand is bugging me. Yeah, after CalArts, I actually got the DreamWorks trainee program, and for the visa, so the thing with the visa is I didn't qualify for the work visa the following year, so I had to leave America for half a year and then just like work as a freelancer because I couldn't get that. But I did have to like fight for an O1 visa. And luckily, thankfully, with my experiences from CalArts and being nominated for an Annie Award, it did help me, get qualified for an O1. And I didn't really and I didn't really have a lot of work experience. So having like my student films, like being a part of like film festivals, it really helps me big time. Sorry if I'm not responding. It's just that I just want to address some of this stuff first. Hold on. So he waves. Okay, I think I'm gonna make this tail overshoot. Okay. Um, how d- how do you feel about using Harmony? I've spent a year in college using it. It's okay. I mean, I think it's a very powerful thing, but again, it's like, well, I don't really use the rigging system as much, and I don't really care too much about the vectors right now. But for what it can do and what it does, it like the node thing has been pretty cool. So it is pretty powerful, but I just haven't really taken advantage of it. Um, to the point where it's like, yeah, I can replace any 2D program, but I mean, TV Paint is something that I'm super familiar with, so I choose that for just hand drawn animation. But I think like Harmony definitely has the pipeline in its head, and this might be like too blunt of me to say, but um, I feel like Harmony thinks more about the animation production, whereas TV Paint thinks more about the artists. Although like TV Paint does have like animation friendly or art animation friendly stuff, I feel like TV Paint gives more freedom in how an artist wants to, let's say, make an animated painting. Whereas with uh, Harmony, you kind of are there's certain like they expect you to sort of work in a certain way. Um, so people keep asking me how I feel about grease pencil and what it's like learning it, and I would say that Um, you know what? I just don't know how to answer like the whole learning curve of grease pencil or Blender. The reason why I got into Blender is because I actually do want to make 3D sets. Grease Pencil was not a part of it, but everyone keeps talking about Grease Pencil and how I should try it. And I've tried it, and I'm like, well, I still prefer TV Paint. That's just a personal preference I have. But in terms, if you were to ask me, would I recommend Grease Pencil as like your first animation choice? It's hard for me to say. I will say I would personally choose a more simpler program if you just care about 2D animation and not like doing anything in 3D. However, if you do plan in like maybe doing 3D or you really using Blender to make stuff, then I would look into it. But I think for a free program, it's awesome. So if that's all you have or have access to, then I would highly recommend it. Um, Hello there. So Rainleft asks, "Hello there. This might sound like a silly question, but should you be stressed if you can't go to a popular?" Um, I know what that feeling is like. Um, but at the same time, there's been a lot of newer people in the industry that haven't that don't that didn't go come from like CalArts or a super prolific animation school like Goblin or Sheridan. There's a lot of people in the industry that just went through workshop style classes like CDA, CGMA. I know Rad Seacrest with Project City, him, like Rad Seacrest, Chase, Ethan Becker, they've been trying to do the whole thing with Project City, so that's an option. And it's taught by people who have actual experience in the industry. But in terms of like going to a popular school, I think it really depends on like what goal do you have for like the school. Do you want to make films or do you just want to get a job? If it's just a job, don't waste your money on school. Just go to like a workshop style. But if you want to be, let's say, a part of that community, that community or that legacy, and what it's like going through that and making films, um, and really being a part of that environment of crunch time and students making films together, there's something really special about that. So that's something that I will also let you know, that like don't go because it's going to help you get a job or because it's just a prolific school. um, Understand what the curriculum of the school is, and if it's like you get to make a student film every year, for me that's what I responded to the most. Then I would say it is worth it. Okay, so there's a bunch of questions that I have. So, anyone who went to study in Le Gobelin? I heard it's the most prestigious animation school in the world. Yeah, I know a lot of people from Gobelin. And a lot of the people in Gobelin are like super chill and really talented too. In terms of like it being the most prestigious animation school, what is prestige? Like, is it the reputation or is it the legacy? Is it the expense? I don't know, but I will say that it does have a strong mark in the industry and the animation community. Hey, Mepity, I saw your thing. I'm also reaching a place where creating a series is the end all goal. Nowadays, I fall in love with orchestrating other ideas and bring out the best in people through team projects. There's a lot of people that do like discover that making a series or making their own thing isn't really something that they're passionate about, and that is totally fine. I think I'm also in that place where I'm like, I have no need to make my own show and to pitch around, and I've tried that, and I found myself wanting it for like the wrong reasons. So I think like I've been trying to go back to like, okay, what got me doing this in the first place? If let's say having a show or a project isn't part of the equation here. Enzo, I've dabbled into NSFW. You can go out quite easily. I'm not sure what you mean by go out quite easily. Like make money or like leave that NSFW workspace. Okay. I made a separate Wow, people are talking about NSFW related stuff in here. I made a separate account to do NSFW. Not gonna lie, it did just make me sad how quickly I got commissions. Yeah, I mean, people will pay for content like that. That's the internet, you know. But at the same time, it's like, even though it is sad, it's like, well, you know, the internet is also a place where there are people who have certain thirsts that need to be quenched. Okay, sorry. Favorite snack when animating? Ooh, that's a good question. I don't know. I usually find myself eating like nuts. These nuts. Mostly almond and walnuts. Like trail mixes, you know, are for me are like a good snack for me to munch on. Okay. Let me see. What studio role do you find the most creatively satisfying? Storyboarding, animation, character design, etc. I would say storyboarding, because it really is just about like trying to flesh out the shots and trying to figure out how to tell a story visually. And you know, there's a lot of like experimentation there with animation. No, animation's pretty fulfilling, but at the same time, it's like you're following someone else's like layouts. With character design, I think character design has the least amount of like creative freedom for me, at least, because you have to follow to a certain style, and sometimes they're super strict on that. Like when I was doing turnarounds for Kipo, they were very lenient about a certain line quality, and just like making turnarounds for pre-existing drawings more so than like you coming up with designs. That's just for TV. I don't know about feature. I never really did character design work for feature. I only like, you know, gave like some notes on like character design notes for feature. But other than that, I've usually been, you know, I don't really do a lot of like character design work in the industry. Okay, I'm gonna say. How long have I done animation for? I've worked in the industry as a full-time artist since 2014. But before then, I was doing like freelance for smaller places. Okay, I think his arm should go out there. So just like, and this hand should be all the way there. And in his torso, if this is a center line, it should be out here. There we go. Okay. Sorry, I'm just like going back and answering certain questions. There's a lot that I haven't really gotten through with. Okay. Oh yeah, wait. How are you liking Grease Pencil as opposed to your normal Toon Boom? It's okay. I'm not yet like a fan of Grease Pencil, but I'm using this as a challenge to sort of like see if I can make something animated completely in Blender and Grease Pencil. So it's just something that I'm kind of teaching myself. And I do want to create a new intro for the channel. So I think it's like, well, why not try doing it with Grease Pencil and then talking about what I learned trying to reanimate my intro using Grease Pencil, even if it sucks. So for the VivziePop creator, VivziePop I think she did a summer workshop for Goblin. I don't think she did a full degree there. That's what I think, or what I might be wrong, but I feel like she did the summer program that's like open to internationals. And she did not study she studied at SVA. She's Californian, but oh no, I don't know if she's Californian, but I know that she studied at SVA. She went to the same school as like Dana and Rebecca Sugar and Phil Renda and that community. But she was not a CalArtian. And I hate it when people call certain, like, they call the Steven Universe style the Cal Art style, whereas, like, if I want to be technical, I mean, Steven Universe, is made by someone from SVA, but of course Gravity Falls has that whole beanhead style, and I don't think so. When before I went to Cal Arts, the Cal Arts style was actually known as like the Disney Renaissance style, where everyone was trying to be like Don Bluth or like the '90s Disney. The person who coined the term the Cal Arts style and made it popular was John Kay. And for those who don't know who John Kay is, he's the guy who made Ren and Snippy. What happened to him recently? Well, look him up. But I think like people like to sort of like throw the Cal Arts style and say, oh, it's a bean shaped style. But you're only looking at a very small group of Cal Artians that do draw in that style. Because I went to school at Cal Arts. I know a lot of people from Cal Arts, and there's only a few people that I know that do draw in that in the bean head shaped style. It's just that like I think people like to sort of like classify things like, oh, this is why cartoons suck, because this highly expensive school called Cal Arts, is the reason why all these cartoons sort of like look like this. And I want to make a video about the Cal Arts style, talking about like my feelings for it, and as someone who did come from Cal Arts. And I will say that the reason why there is a part of the stigma with like Cal Arts and the Cal Arts style is because I personally know people who did come from Cal Arts who are entitled and they are in the industry. Like they say things that are very, egotistical or sometimes like very demeaning. So it makes Cal Artians look like they're these egotistical, up in their ass sort of like individuals, and then working in a place like Cartoon Network. So I can kind of also understand why there's a lot of like stigma with Cal Artians being douchebags. And sadly, like I know people that I went to school with that act like that to people who are nice to that act like that to people who did not go through Cal Arts, and say things like, oh, at Cal Arts this is the right way because we did it this way. And there's a reason why a lot of Cal Artians stick in the industry. And I've heard people say that. And, I talked to my other Cal Artian friends and we're like, yo, this is something that like we never like preached, but it's surprising to see how much some of our friends actually preach that stuff, using Cal Arts, our school name, like that. Okay, anyways, back to would it be a good idea to have a few years experience in a studio to do freelance, or would it be better to try and do freelance if that's what I want to do? Whatever's available to you, right? So you can be a freelancer or you can be a full-time. I think like the grass is greener on the other side regardless of where you go, right? I would say like if you want to live as a freelancer, know that like it's, for me, I don't personally enjoy living the freelance life. I thought I would love like that, but for me, I kind of like being a part of a production, whereas freelancers, they're more like hired hand for a certain production. They're not really like a part of that family long term. And I personally like being a part of a production full time, and I think I build better relationships with people that I work with. Whereas freelancers, I'm only talking to like one or two or a few people, but not so much as like a whole team. And also, it's not the most stable. I personally like working as a full-time person. I actually do enjoy working in studios or for a studio, and then using my own time to work my own stuff, because it's like for me, it takes me a long time to also adapt to a new project. And as a freelancer, I don't think I would be able to like adapt to multiple projects, because it takes me a while to like really get into the feel of a certain project. Okay, which do you enjoy more, doing animation or teaching animation? That's a good question. Nowadays, I like animating more so than teaching, but I do enjoy teaching regardless. The reason why I don't teach right now, like I'm not doing a class, is because, and here's the thing about teaching, like I don't like teaching or preaching the same thing over and over again. And especially if it's something that I don't really feel honest about anymore. I don't want to share that with my students. So I personally like working on my own stuff or like animating and learning more about what I do. So when I do come back to teaching, I actually have more to talk about rather than like preach things that I don't really mean. And for me to find truth in what I do, I have to animate. I have to work on my own stuff. I have to do stuff, regardless whether it's for myself or for the industry, before I teach it, so I can have a better understanding of it when I do teach a class. That's just me being super honest with myself. And when I teach, I'm pretty passionate. Like I like to have one-on-one sessions with my students and actually like draw over their work and talk about it with them and ask them questions like what were they thinking and things like that. Okay, let me see. How am I doing right now? I'm doing okay. I'm just so tired. Um, I thought I was gonna only be here for like an hour or so, but I think I might stay a bit longer just so that I can like maybe tie down a lot of the keys that I have. Okay, I'm sorry to stop you right there, but Couch Style is not real. Rebecca Sugar is not even from. Oh, this is not answering me. Okay, David Lynn, I understand your CalArts short films mostly come from ego, addiction, and competitiveness, but I think you are very great at your craft and capable of telling great stories. Thank you so much. I will say that, like, I don't think all my films were done entirely out of, like, proving myself or competition. While it was an aspect of it, I do think that, like, all the hardships I faced during that crunch time and what I went through did accumulate to those films. So a lot of those personal films are personal experiences for sure. The only thing, not regret, because, I think part of those experiences are just experiences that I'll learn for the future. So I don't regret what I did at CalArts, like, in terms of, like, the films that I've made. But I will say that, like, nowadays, the types of work that I want to do is sort of, like, more for me, more so than, like, trying to get a job in the industry. And that's how I would summarize making film. Like, the films I made at CalArts was driven by, like, oh, I want to make this film because I know feature studios like this type of stuff, so I want to get a job in the industry, so I'll make my film cater to that. And that is fine. That is totally okay. It's just that, like, I think in the long run, it took me a while to get out of that mindset. Okay, sorry. Yeah, no worries. Visa stuff, I will always talk about that. Evan Bell, you were talking about NSFW art earlier. How would someone who has done NSF commission for a living talk about integrate that when they were trying to pivot? That's a good question. I don't have the answer to that. I probably have to ask, not safe for work artists that question, like if it has done anything for that. Oh shit, where did my stroke go? There we go. Yeah, so that is a answer that I do not have yet. And also, like, that is something that I have to talk about with someone too. Okay. Sorry, I'm looking at the questions. Hey Eureka, I did not get any scholarships. I actually did have like the funding from my family. It was part of my what's it called? The heritage? Not heritage. Inheritance, sorry. Inheritance to go to school at CalArts. So that's how I was able to afford that. But at the same time, I think if I think it is a smart idea to look into scholarships. I think I had some classmates that did like scholarships with studios. I think some studios do offer scholarships, like Warner Brothers does. I think. I know that I had a classmate that was they had a Warner Brothers scholarship when they were attending CalArts. Okay. Gerber, you would be amazed how much you can learn from online tools like tutorials and forums. School is most important for networking. All sides, Nico. Yeah, I think school is good for networking, but at the same time, I think like being a part of that body of students, it is like great for like networking, but there are also other venues that are better for networking, like attending CTN or conferences, not cons, not conventions, but like conferences where it is for networking. So for people trying to get into the industry, I would, you know, recommend that. Okay, let's go. Can you do a sale on your animation fundamentals course? Yeah, I'm actually going to announce that on Monday, so stay tuned for that. Monday animation course sale. Okay, random questions. What did you think of cartoon Thundercats Roar? Did it deserve all the hate it got? So I think I've watched a bit of Thundercats 4 and I've watched the original series too. And I think the original series is so silly. Like a lot of people think the original series is like this untouchable masterpiece, but holy shit, there's like episodes of like, Lion-O trying to arm wrestle a caveman just to get through it. It's silly. And I think Thundercats Roar, like, it's a lot more goofier and silly, but it's a lot of fun. Like they actually understood what they were trying to be, and they amped it up all the way. The original Thundercats, I think people hold it to a pedestal because of the opening animation. Really, it's a silly cartoon, and I think a lot of people don't realize how silly it is. They just think, oh, how dare Thundercats Roar turn this cartoon into this? So yeah, I know there was a Thundercats 2011 that was like a lot more serious and edgy looking. I kind of fell out of it. I wasn't really invested in it, but I don't really watch anything Thundercats related as much. Okay, sorry. I'm going to look at other questions. If you get a job as an international, do you go I answered this earlier. You do, to qualify for a standard work visa, you do need a degree. It can be anything, I think, but I think it looks better if it is animation related. But I don't think that's like a requirement for. Requirement to. It has to be animation. Sorry, I'm looking at other. How to gain experience to get your first client, because most people want an experienced animator. I would say just keep making stuff like free, like either fan art, fan animations, or personal projects, because that's how a lot of studios reach out to me. They reach out to me because of a 48-hour film I did, or a demo reel, or an animation test. I don't really get offers because I have work experience as much. I mean, it helps, and people do look for people with work experience, but I think like creatives and studios that are led by like creatives are willing to work with people who have a strong portfolio or a body of work. Okay, question. Is it okay to study one part of anatomy per month? Honestly, I think like the whole like how do I study anatomy? I do have like certain thoughts on that. It really doesn't matter like 1 month or 2 months should I focus on this thing. I mean, do whatever. I would say like don't fetishize like studying like something. The only way for me, like I think to actually learn something is to apply it to a project or to work, like and then try and come up with how you do it. Like you can study like a day of like torsos and then the next day of like hands, and it'll work. Like I think it's I don't see why it would not work in order to get better at anatomy. But I think like whatever you choose to do, however you choose to study something, make sure there's a purpose behind it. Like even tracing, like if you're tracing other people's art to learn how they choose their line language or their decision making, you have to be aware of how, like, okay, how is this going to help? Like, what am I gaining out of this? Because I don't want to be the person who preaches study every day, do this every day, because I personally don't believe in that crap. I would say if you are going to like approach something and how you want to get better at it, make sure that like the study that comes out of it, it's like you're you're kind of expecting what to get out of it. Okay. Sorry, I'm looking at other questions. Oh, okay. I don't think there's any other. Wait, no. My YouTube skips. Hey, Nico, do you have any? Sorry, I'm. Oh, I know Kenna McHarris. Yeah. Anyways, hi Taniko. Do you have any tips for teaching animation? Make sure you watch many. If you're gonna teach animation, I would say this is just a personal opinion. But if you are going to teach animation, make sure you also expose yourself to many different types of animation, a bit of animation history, and like obscure animation, because I think that's going to also like, make you think about, oh, how do these other artists or workways treat, like, let's say, how to show weight, instead of like relying on the nine old men stuff all the time, or the 12 principles of animation, because I think that stuff is useful, but at the same time I also think like there's people who just preach it just for the sake of like, being elitist about like classical nine old men animation. And I think like you should look into like anime, you should look into more limited stuff and see how they problem solve things based on their limitations. Okay, and break it down. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to in the third year into Algonquin College's animation program in September, and I was wondering what you consider to be the best character animation to work on for portfolio pieces. When I was at CalArts, I remember a lot of studios wanted more dialogue in demo reels. They wanted more like pantomime acting, a lot of acting for sure. I know that like it really depends, because when you're thinking of like making a reel, think about the studio that you want to work with. With Disney, they like character acting. With maybe Powerhouse, they like if you can animate in the Sakuga style for their fight scenes and all of that. It really, really depends on like where you want to go. Okay, gonna try asking again. Do you know how to clean a wrist? Or I don't really use artist gloves, so yeah. Have you tried animating any memes like caramel dancing for your little dog characters? I think animating memes is fun. I just haven't done it, but I think I do want to make stupid shorts someday and like more casual stuff. And I think like I would start with just animating memes. Okay, his head is supposed to be big here, or much wide. I'll fix it later. Anyways, do you have any advice on balancing a relationship with your career? I would say just have other hobbies and other things to do in life. I know like taking up different hobbies made me appreciate what life was like outside of my career, or different types of people too. Like being a part of a different community that's outside of animation, it really does help me like say, oh, okay, like trying to run a show isn't really a priority anymore. And if I wanted to fulfill that creative need, I can just like make stuff of my own rather than like pitch to a studio and like play the game. So I think that's how I would go about it. Like make sure you have a good number of friends, a good community, a good supportive community. Do therapy too. I think therapy is great to sort of like figure out, who you are as a human being, and sort of like find ways to answer things in your life that you don't really know how to answer. And then, yeah, it's not like a simple answer, like how do you balance it? It's more like you have to sort of find other things to value in yourself rather than just the career. Because sometimes the career isn't always good for you, even if you try to like balance your life. Maybe sometimes there's a part in your personal life that is causing an issue with your relationship with your career. It happens. Okay, have you ever considered joining a Japanese production? Many times. I've actually been offered a bunch, but I just don't have the time and the luxury for that. And it's not that like I don't ever want to work in anime. It's more like I think for me, there's other things I do want to focus on, like personal projects, rather than just like working in like an industry. Sometimes I just want to work on my own stuff, and I would just choose that over than working in like anime or production or even like a studio job. Okay, hey Tanika, do you know about Grease Pencil Desk? It's a Blender add-on that does everything you want for animation. I'll look into it sometime. Thanks for recommending me that. Okay, so many questions. Holy crap. Okay, so I found a school that teaches. Okay, that's not. Is that wait? So I found the school that teaches animation for the summer for high school students, but it's for 2 weeks. Is that more than enough? I don't know. I feel like 2 weeks is really short, and I think that like you only learn by like doing rather than like a course that just tells you this is a bouncing ball, this is squash and stretch. I honestly think you learn from like doing, and that means like making stuff of your own time, not really depending on a course or school. Okay. Regardless of the names, I think it's okay not to find art styles attractive. Yeah, that's fine. Um, I want to get into animation. I still don't understand the fundamentals, and is it online because that's the only way I can attend. Wait, oh sorry, that's not for me. Okay, Inspire. I so Inspire asks, hi Taniko. I get burned out when I start learning animation because there are too many ways to learn it. Do you know how to start learning efficiently from the beginning? Um, as much as I've always been saying like, hey, just try making personal projects, and that's a good way to learn, even if it's not perfect. But I would also say like another under this is just like maybe an idea, not really like this is an underrated practice of like learning animation is doing effects animation. I really do believe that like effects animation, you know, teaches you a lot about animation without being grounded by rules too much. And I think like sometimes the rules can be overbearing, whereas like learning how to animate a smoke and just learning how to make it disappear, dissipate, and just like getting those shapes is a good way to sort of like learn like how to make those drawings connect. You know, is animating in Photoshop a viable option at CalArts? I don't know where you heard that. I will say no. Some people animate in Photoshop, but I personally do not like it. I've done it. It's not really my cup of tea. But there are plugins for that. Okay. Now I'm type. Hey, how did you find a mentor or group when you have no money for classes? I think some people use like online Discord servers. I think, right? But or there's like volunteer programs. Like I know some of my coworkers are doing mentorship programs under like the Animation Guild or under like Women for Animation. So sometimes they have like these free mentorships based on like students like portfolio or whatever criteria they have. Like I know a long time ago, during Black Lives Matter, I did like partner up with someone for providing my tutorial courses for free for like students within this. I don't know how to describe it. I think it was like a black community for animators. Um, but I think that was like the last thing that I got to do. But no one really reached out to me for anything else. Okay. Hey Taniko, I was wondering if you could talk about some of your big aha moments. Were they mainly in school? I got a lot of like aha moments during school. Like for me, I think I had difficulty sort of like in animation. Like I think the biggest aha for me for like animation and acting is like really think more about how to give this thing more lifelike stuff rather than focus on like the acting aspect of it, because a lot of like places love to throw acting like the word acting for animation, and I think like if you don't know how to approach that, it's kind of useless. But I think you should really like make challenges for that. Like, I think a good challenge is like, okay, let's say this character is just breathing and they're scared. How do you show that? And I think like being able to show signs of like life or little nuances like that is a good way to start. So for me, like that really helped me like think about being inside the character's mind or in their mind and their overall attitudes and like thinking about the eyes. Like what do their eyes say? Like I think my film workshop mentor said that like think about what the eyes are trying to communicate, but everything else says differently. And I did that a lot with like Crayon Dragon. Like I really thought about like, okay, this dragon is like really sad, but also like thinking about thinking about like how do you kind of like make this dragon look like it's hiding its sadness. So it made me think about stuff like that. Okay, sorry. Anyways, AMB, yeah, I don't know AMB animation too well, but I know of the channel. I find that channel super entertaining because it's AMB, right? So he's like, when he advertises his course, he's like, animation has a purpose, and the purpose is to define yourself and to know who you are and to work at it and to be hard. It's like super like gung ho. It's so 80s. Like even the way he like presents the reels and stuff, it's like accompanied with like synthesized music, and there's a lot of like 80s mindset. Like you just gotta work through the pain, and it's been a while, but that was like what I remember seeing from years ago. It's entertaining. It makes me want to do roundhouse kicks after seeing those. Okay, Curse Gachal asks, hey Taniko, if you are animating a character that has too many details, will you try to remove the details of character or just try to animate it? Of course I would try and like come up with a shorthand for the character. So to get a shorthand of a character, I would recommend tracing over the model sheet of the character and then just trying to break it down into simple shapes and then animating that first. So when you do clean it up and tie it down, then you can revisit those key poses and then start adding those details in. But that I would say after you have the performance down. Does that make sense? Okay. Holy crap. Just looking at questions. I don't think I will animate in Blender, like how to animate in Blender. There's too many of those. There's a lot of tutorials online that it's like, what's the point of me making one? I have no sort of passion for like making software tutorials unless it's like for a class or something. But it's like, well, there's a lot of tutorials online already, so what do I have to add to it? And there are people who are better at it than I am. Because even if I did like a software video or review, there'll be people that'll go like, that's not how you should work, or you don't trust Grease Pencil enough. Like when I made my review or my first thoughts on Grease Pencil, like people were saying that I just don't understand it and I'm too biased. And you know what? So what if I'm biased? It's like, well, yeah, because I already have like a paradigm of how I want to work, and how I choose to work. And at the time, like Grease Pencil, it wasn't really offering me that. Okay. So I'm looking at questions. Yeah, there are artists. Okay. No questions. Do you ever draw the curves you want to your animation to follow, or do you always have it done? It's simply eye to eye. Sometimes like there will be times where I'll just like animate a placeholder like this instead of a character and just move that around, and then once I have that done, and maybe I'll show a test later. Then I can also show a bit of that. Okay, a few more drawings, I think. Then I'll just like spend time for myself like in betweening a lot of this stuff. Wait a second. I don't think this head movement rings true anymore. Actually, Okay, I'm not gonna follow my roughs here, but I am going to see what I will do. Oh shit. Boop. Okay. Sorry, I'm just like reading questions that I can find to answer. Um, do you ever okay? Close studio. Hi, I just started. I just can't do in betweens and the outcome looks stiff. I don't have any problem doing 3D animation, but my drawing skills, I would say it's more about like how you decide to space those in betweens, really, and constantly flip like what I'm doing. I don't use the light table. I'm actually just flipping um, my animation back and forth, just so that I can just keep track of like the shapes. I only like I only use the onion skin when I'm like when the drawings are too close to each other and when I am, um, yeah. But other than that, like this is how I sort of like sense motion. That's a brush going through the foreground. And his body shrinks, so I'm gonna make it big here. And his leg kicks up, I think. I can always change these. So his head, when his head snaps down before he leaps, it feels much more snappier instead of like floating, you know? But yeah. The way I'm working is probably not ideal for like studio because I'm just like filling in lines and shapes. Even though there might be animation errors, I know that they aren't gonna be like so big, and I can always go back and solidify those drawings. Yeah, I haven't sat in AMB's classes. Yeah, the this dog character is supposed to be a golden retriever, but I think people just call him a Labrador, and I'm like, close enough. He's whatever you want him to be. He could just be a yellow dog, and that's all you need to know. A yellow, giant-headed dog. Nothing more, nothing less. No need for like labels and that. Okay. Yeah, I made a smear frame on him. Is it possible to do animations like you do in After Effects? Not hand drawn animation, but maybe like motion tweening. How would you animate a background with several details, like wind blowing in the grass? Would you animate in large proportions? You can be smart about it. You can like animate like a bush and then just like duplicate that across the scene. You could try animating every bit of the background in a single file, but I would say I personally would keep things separate. Okay. It's doing like a little ballet jump here. I'm probably gonna have to speed a lot of this animation up because I do feel like it does feel slow. I'm not looking forward to coloring this. I haven't really tried coloring stuff like this in in grease pencil, so I'll give it a shot. Let's do a little spin. There we go. It's a little mouth. If you had all the art for a comic or game, which route would I take? I honestly would do comics. Games, it's like another territory, and I definitely have to think more about the player when I think about coming up with stories. But I do want to. Actually, I might like not do as much animation anymore, and maybe move on to comics because I do want to tell bigger stories. And I think like a good way just to tell longer stories or bigger stories is with comics because animation takes so much time. Hey, Taniko, do you know any 2D animation online course that give criticism and session? I think AMB does feedback, but I want to do feedback eventually, like maybe as a thing in the future. I don't know if Howard Wimshurst's course does feedback. I know he's using a different platform for that, but again, it's something that I don't really know. What animation program lags less? For me, TV Paint has lagged less. Evan Kent. I just saw Lightyear documentary and the key animator talked about his emphasis on that. Oh yeah. Shit, you know what the most frustrating thing about animation? Oh, who's my favorite storyboard artist? There's a lot. There's there's man, yeah, I'm trying to. There's Ryan Savis is one. There's what's his face? Shoot, he's in like multiple features at once. John Puglisi's one. Um, Oliver Thomas is a pretty good story artist, but he over animates his boards, and his boards are like kind of like finished film footage. So I probably wouldn't hold him as an example of like an ideal story artist, but I will say that like I love his stuff and I love the work he does. And then for action, of course, there's like Joaquin or Kiryu, and then there's like a bunch of other people. But yeah, like feature boards, it's like I think Tom Gately's one. There's even Toby Sheldon. There's even shoot, why can't I think of his name? There's a lot. And the great thing about like a lot of these story artists is they all have a different style, too. Okay. Yeah, I mean that's the thing with animation. Like a lot of people just praise more the drawings more so than like the content, which is sad because I do want to make silly things and I don't want to make good drawings all the time. Oh shit, there's a yeah, I'm not really worried about line quality here. I turned off pen pressure for the line size. Okay, that like doesn't make sense. And then here. Okay, more questions. So yeah, I watched your video about drawing skills I needed for animation. So is it important to learn all the drawing skills and then start animating? Or is there a better efficient way? You could, if you wanted to like animate human figures, you could apply like your figure drawing skills when drawing the body. I sometimes like to do live action studies where I draw each frame or every 3 frames or 2 frames from a live action movie and then just try and like apply life drawing in that. So I'm like killing 2 birds with one stone with like learning how to improve my figure drawing skills and then also trying to sort of understand a bit of like getting used to straight ahead in motion. So there's that. Okay. Have you ever worked or want to work on a storyboard given a show like Adventure Time or SpongeBob? I would try it. It's just that I don't think I am the right cast for it. Like I know I tried doing a test for Pickle and Peanut years ago, but I just didn't match the sensibility. And I now that I work in an action show, like an action superhero show, I actually really enjoy that right now. But I will also go back to maybe feature when the time is right. what kind of comics would you be getting into? Like webtoon? I don't know. I mean, I've always wanted to make like, epic stuff, like epic stories. I think I've always wanted to make dark stuff like Berserk. I have a dark story idea that I've always wanted to tackle, but I don't know if animation is the right, medium for that anymore. So yeah, I don't know yet, but I do want to like, or I honestly, I'm just going to like invest in making black and white animations, super limited, and then just like get things across more so. Okay, let me see other responses. More details, better. Okay. Hey, teach a funny thing I've noticed is that many animation tutorials have disclaimers that their way of doing this is very inefficient. I wonder, is it possible to make the most efficient process? So right now, I've been, asking other animators to help me animate some scenes for a project that I've been, working on silently. And I think one thing that I've noticed is that like my way of working can sometimes cause problems with, in a team environment. And that's something that you kind of have to like acknowledge too. Like it's the team environment. So make it easier to make it efficient. Think about ways to make the process easier for everyone, and how it can make it easier for you. So that's what I would think. Okay, there's a strong squash pose here. So you kind of like bloop, kind of like Jello. Oh, I loved Smiling Friends. I like Smiling. I watched Smiling Friends on HBO now, and I really love it. Okay, I could you give us some examples of good limited animation? I'll try and like collect some resources on that. I can't think of stuff from my head, but I think like Worthy Kids is one. I think Bill Pete is definitely one of those. Bill Pete. Who else? No, not Bill Pete. Is it Bill Pete I'm thinking of? Let me see. Plimpton. Bill Plimpton. My bad. Bill Plimpton is also a really good limited animator. Um, yeah. There's a bunch, but it's something that I'd also have to research more about. Shoot, where did my chat go? Oh no, my chat. Sorry, I'm just like looking for. Hold on for a second. Nope. There we go. Okay, cool. Yeah, honestly, like I want to experiment with a different like style that looks like a manga, like the half tones and all of that. I mean, I think there's some, or like something that has like very limited color schemes. Okay, he kind of like squashes here, so let's emphasize that squash. No. There we go. The cloth wrinkles. And then this foot kicks up just to add that like recoil, you know? Bing! Yeah, there we go. Yeah, Flapjack is good. I remember enjoying that show when I was a kid. Okay, I think I'm gonna like animate for a few more. Then I'm gonna call it maybe a few more drawings. Okay. Do you usually get to work on darker and edgier stories for your own work? For my job, I usually work in features, so that's mostly family. But lately, I've been getting more work in adult animation, which has been actually freaking awesome because, like, it's just like a different field of things, and you don't really have to follow too many, like, rules that are just kind of abstract. Yeah, this is a smear frame. May I request you add a little wagtail when Bon Bon smiles at the camera? You know what? I'll put that note. Maybe here. Tail wag. Until. Tail wag. And that's a good note. Thanks. Yeah, I'll definitely do that. As a traveling animator, what do you prefer, a laptop or a PC? I personally like. I mean, if you're traveling, might as well just have laptop. But if you're planning to do like fully finished looking productions, then maybe a mobile workstation. But again, it's like I don't want to, preach things that you don't necessarily need. AT Gaming Series. Your thoughts about Howard Windsor's mastering motion course? I don't know it. I've seen clips of it. It seems like something that Howard seems passionate about when he talks about it and when he shows it. So I don't really have anything to say about that. You know what? This expression does not make sense. You should already like. There we go. Did you ever work with medias other than digital, like watercolor at CalArts? Yeah, I mean, my first year film. Oh, like in terms of like film or just mediums in general? Because yeah, I did paint and I did do color pencils, but when it came to film, I think the only film that I did on paper was my first year film with The Magician. That was all animated on paper and then colored in Photoshop. But after that, I was just like, I'm not making a film like that and by myself on paper. Like if I am to animate on paper, then I would just rather make it look like have that finished paper look. Tanika, would it be easier to animate this in 3D? Yes and no. And the reason why I say no because first of all, I'd have to learn how to rig something, and I have to make a model of this character, and then rig it, and make sure the rig doesn't break, and then make sure like it's animatable. So that is like time for me to learn. For me, like I'm just fast at animating in 2D, especially for a character like this that is like super simple, Okay. Is there a way to flip your image horizontally? I don't know if there is a way to like flip the image horizontally, like with a press a button. That's the advantage of like Toon Boom and TV Paint. Like there's a button where you can like flip the canvas or the image orientation just to preview what it looks like flipped. easier for a beginner animator to animate on thirds and stuff rather than yeah, sure. You should just try it. Honestly, I think like animating in fours is a good way to go. I mean, ones there's no real problem with doing that. Twos is a standard, but I mean like, hey, whatever floats your boat. I would say just like keep experimenting with it. There's no, I don't really agree with the whole like you should animate in a certain frame rate for like beginners or not, because if you're animating on threes or more limited frame rate, then you're gonna really have to think about more about the spacing of your in betweens and things like that, more so than like animating in ones and twos, which is like you could just like get away with everything being even halved when it comes to in betweening. But when it comes to like threes and fours, because of the limited number of drawings, you might have to like space out those in betweens by like thirds or favors and all that. Okay. Adobe Animate. Wait, do you apply anything specific with settings to your brushes like stabilizing? Do I have any smoothing here? Let me see. No. I didn't realize I didn't have this on. How does let me see how it feels. Maybe I should have used that. Damn it, I'm an idiot. Well, I'll use it for in-betweening, whatever. Okay, I do like the smoothing here, but doing stuff like that, yeah, I'd have to work extra just to make it smooth. Oh yeah, I could use the gimbal to flip it like this, right? Here, let me yeah, I didn't like doing that. How do I get back to, there we go. Yeah, you're right, I could use the gimbal. Okay, I think one more drawing, and I think it's ready for in-betweens, and I might wrap it up from there. But let me see. Do I need... Okay, this hand is really weird. I'm going to change that. Now I wish I had stabilizer on. Now I have it and I'm like, oh shit, I have to just draw a bit more surface area. I think that this eye's too small. I can see. Unlimited, I don't know any like books on limited animation, but I will say like Eric Goldberg's like Character Animation Crash Course is a underrated piece of book. That's pretty good in like even like some drawing notes of like how to draw like dotty-eyed for animation or how to like think about certain breakdowns. It's pretty good. I would say something like that is also like a good book to get first, maybe before the Animator Survival Kit, I think. But the Animator Survival Kit is also like it's pretty dense, and I mean for me like the way I treat the Animation Survival Kit, it's not like a book that I can like read from beginning to end. It's more like, well, I need ideas on how to animate a four-legged cycle. What are some chapters on that? Whereas the Crash Course is pretty good on like introducing concepts one step at a time. How am I controlling the timeline? I set keyboard shortcuts to allow me to flip through the keys. Okay, this is the last drawing, but of course I can like go back and like fix some of these lines. Yeah, it's up and down arrows, and I set those up and down arrows to the Tor box that I'm using, which is like a peripheral for like, instead of just using a keyboard, it's like this little pad. Hey, don't, I would say hold off on like buying. Oh man, I think some people actually bought the course, but I'll message them back if they want to take advantage of the sale coming on Monday. Yeah, but yeah, I would say like wait till Monday because I am going to announce a discount for anyone who might have bought the course around this time. I will, you know, gladly, reimburse you. I started YouTube after I had to leave the United States because I thought that I would not come back to the United States when I didn't get my visa. So I'm like, well, I want to see what other landscapes there are if I can't find a full-time job in the industry because of visa. And let's see if there's something with YouTube. I just didn't know what I wanted to do with YouTube. I just made tutorials. But eventually I do want to put, silly animation. Okay, it's getting there, guys. I think his pants lose a bit of consistency here, so I'm just going to now this is where I turn on onion skin and see if there's anything that I could fix in terms of the consistency. So like, yeah, now I'm just adding a bit. That foot is weird. His feet are like crisscross applesauce. But yeah, I started my YouTube after I left the United States because they couldn't get me my work visa. Okay, I'm gonna turn off my rough animation and kind of see what this feels like. And I'll play it and I'll save it. Actually, let me save it first, and then I'll in between it in my own time. I think it's passable, but I could also like see there's a lot of like lines that I couldn't stop playing. I couldn't close, so I'm gonna close these lines. Yeah, now I think I'm gonna revisit a lot of these shapes. And just redraw, revisit. Yeah, that's a good. I'm gonna save. I think people have asked me that a lot. Is grease pencil worth learning? If you feel like you're gonna use it long term, or you feel like you're gonna use it, yeah, I think because it's open source and a lot of projects are really investing in Blender and grease pencil. Why not? It's like, go for it. Okay. Hey Taniko, have you ever considered breaking down any popular Sakuga or some famous animation clips on YouTube? Not really. I don't really do that because I kind of like keeping my YouTube channel as like this personal journal more so than like breaking down other animation. And there's a lot of channels that do that already. I'm not sure what I would contribute to that world anyways. Hi Taniko, starting out in animation, is it wrong to develop a more cartoony, simple style animation like Disney? I don't see why not. Like, I mean, some people go into animation because they want to animate hyper realistic looking stuff, and that's fine. It's like, try it out. Cool. I think I'm gonna probably wrap up tonight and just in between this on my own time. Not online because it's like in betweening is such a boring stage. Cool. I'm gonna wrap this up, but I'm gonna answer some questions for like 5 minutes, and then see if that is good to go. Here, I'll just play this on loop while I look at it and just like see issues that I can find. Looking for entry level animation jobs remotely. Any tips? I would say keep an eye out at Twitter because a lot of people like to retweet and repost a lot of that stuff. So, as much as like I hate talking about Twitter for like job opportunities, it's worth looking into. Hi Tanika, do you have a dump truck? A dump truck where I take a dump? A truck where I dump? I think I'd like one. The tail kind of pops out at the bottom. Let me see. I'm gonna keep an eye. Pops out the bottom. Oh yeah, you're right. Okay, I'm gonna go back and just straight ahead that. It's gonna bounce up and it's gonna go back down. I hope his silhouette doesn't look like he has a dong just dangling there, or he's taking a dump. So, how should you learn and improve your animation when you can't pay for anything? My first introduction to animation was Flipnote. I mean, you can only improve when you have a certain, purpose or reflection. So when someone looks at your work and says, hey, you need to work on this, then you're going to work on certain projects that force you to get better at a certain thing. A lot of these questions are quite general for me to get a better and more specific answer, but I would say like the only way you can improve, especially by yourself and without a school, is just to keep making stuff, ask for feedback, and then address some of the notes that they mentioned. Nuisance Productions. I'm making an animated movie after 14 years of learning animation. What's the best way to network and possibly fund it? I would say test it out with audiences in person. Like, go to CTN, go to Lightbox. Let me get a chair because I've been standing up for the whole session. Actually, I have a stand-up desk, so I've been animating while standing up, which has been really good on my back. But to answer your question, let me just get my chair. I think, yeah, like I would say, maybe show a bit of your project online and then have those links out, and then go to like an event and show a bit of that off, and then see what you can like gain interest in it, especially if you don't have like a following. So I would say, yeah, go into that. How to learn perspective with animation. Learn perspective drawing first. Learn how to do 1 point, 2 point, maybe 3 point perspective, and then learning how to keep the characters consistent. So like for an example would be like and I'm just gonna draw in this frame. So let's say you have your perspective and you have your vanishing point here, right? And then let's say you have a character here. Like if you want to make this character come forward, you kind of have to make it work with the vanishing point, right? So, this is just like one way in how to like think about using perspective as layout. I've been talking for like a long time. But I would say like, yeah, understand perspective drawing like 1 point, 2 point perspective. There's an animation festival that has a pitch bomb that allow people to pitch that's a great idea, because honestly and this is something that I haven't really talked about yet, but I do want to start a very small like film festival where it is focused on people who want to work on personal projects and to pitch that around, and to make stuff for a film festival that's not like a finished film. It's more like trailers or proof of concept. So I've always wanted to do something like that. Um, okay, there's an animation festival. Yeah. Do you have authorized distribution for your online course in China? I know I partnered up with a few names like Yihoo and some other one to distribute some of my tutorials for the Chinese market, and they did have to like make alterations for it for translation and to remove some content. So that was something that I had to deal with. Eureka, are color scripts crucial for film? If your film is black and white and it doesn't really have a strong role, I would say it's not super worth it. If you want to keep things consistent or you want color to play a huge mood, then maybe it's worth it. I never did color scripts. I did a color script for Crayon Dragon, and I might have done a color script for Wolfsong. I think it was just Crayon Dragon where I made and showed off a color script. But for Wolfsong and Tiny Nomad, that was just like I'm just gonna use After Effects to find ways to bake the color in. Where do I see my channel in 3 years? I honestly would. I want it to have more shorts and casual shorts, more so than me talking about what I think about the industry or what I think about my work. Because I could do that all day, but I also want to create, Like, I also want to create stories or make stuff. And I also want to learn how to embrace that part of myself where I can be an idiot and make stupid cartoons. Because I think that's pretty important, too. Um, Dragon Blade. Out of curiosity, why are you using Blender instead of something like Toon Boom? Not that I know. I think for me, this is just a way of learning how to use grease pencil, how to sort of like understand it better. And also, I do want to make a video about like me giving grease pencil another chance and to see if I can make something from scratch with free programs or with just grease pencil. So I think it's like worth it. Is Grease Pencil a beginner friendly program? I would say no. I would say it's not because there's a lot of like buttons up, down, left, and right, but the best part about it is that it's free, and for what it can do for a free program, it's great. It's probably like the best thing. But I don't think the learning curve is easy when you want to tackle multiple things. Like I would say, learning how to rotate things, rotate the camera, and just like navigate that isn't enough to be able to use grease pencil. From my opinion, that's just my opinion. Did you try Krita for animation? I tried a bit of it, just a bit of it, but I did not really invest in it. It's like I'm not, learning a different animation program does take time, and that is something that is very hard to get. Okay, I think the questions are starting to die down, so I think I'm going to wrap up tonight. So I want to say thank you guys for tuning in. I'm going to this stream is not going to be archived publicly. I'm going to put it up on Patreon for the dollar tier. So this video is going to be unlisted, but for the archive's sake, I'm gonna keep it unlisted on my YouTube channel and just have it as a tier on my Patreon. So I want to say thank you guys for participating. Thanks for asking questions, and you guys keep it cool. All right. Peace out. Bye.